1st U.S. Artillery, October 13, 1862, 1st Lieutenant, January 10, 1863. W. W. Sampson, 8th Maine, October 13, 1862, 1st Lieutenant, January 10, 1863. J. M. Thompson, 7th New Hampshire, October 13, 1862, 1st Lieutenant, January 27, 1863. R. M. Gaston, 100th Pennsylvania, October 13, 1862, 1st Lieutenant, April 15, 1863. W. H. Hyde, 6th Connecticut, October 13, 1862, 1st Lieutenant, May 5, 1863. Jas. B. West, 100th Pennsylvania, October 13, 1862, 1st Lieutenant, February 28, 1863. Harry C. West, 100th Pennsylvania, October 13, 1862, resigned November 4, 1864. E. C. Merriam, 8th Maine, November 17, 1862, 1st Lieutenant, November 19, 1863. Chas. E. Parker, 8th Maine, November 17, 1862, 1st Lieutenant, August 26, 1863. C. W. Hooper, New York Volunteer Engineers, February 17, 1863, 1st Lieutenant, April 15, 1863. N. G. Parker, 1st Massachusetts Cavalry, March, 1863, 1st Lieutenant, May 5, 1863. A. H. Terrell, 1st Massachusetts Cavalry, March 6, 1863, resigned July 22, 1863. A. W. Jackson, 8th Maine, March 6, 1863, 1st Lieutenant, August 26, 1863. Henry A. Beach, 48th New York, April 5, 1863, 1st Lieutenant, April 30, 1864. E. W. Robbins, 8th Maine, April 5, 1863, 1st Lieutenant, April 30, 1864. A. B. Brown, Civil Life, April 17, 1863, resigned November 27, 1863. F. M. Gould, 3rd Rhode Island Battery, January 1, 1863, resigned June 8, 1864. As a child, 8th Maine, August 7, 1863, 1st Lieutenant, September 1865. Jerome T. Fordman, 52nd Pennsylvania, August 30, 1863, killed at Walhalla, South Carolina, August 26, 1865. John W. Selvage, 48th New York, September 10, 1863, 1st Lieutenant, 36th U.S. Connecticut, March, 1865. Moran W. Saxton, Civil Life, November 19, 1863, Captain, 128th U.S. Connecticut, June 25, 1864, now 2nd Lieutenant, 38th U.S. Infantry. Nelson S. White, December 22, 1863, 1st Lieutenant, September 1865. E. D. W. W. Hyde, Civil Life, May 4, 1864, 1st Lieutenant, October 27, 1865. F. S. Goodrich, 115th New York, May, 1864, 1st Lieutenant, October 1865. B. H. Manning, August 11, 1864, Captain, 128th U.S. Connecticut, March 17, 1865. R. M. Davis, 4th Massachusetts Cavalry, November 19, 1864, Captain, 128th U.S. Connecticut, March 17, 1865. Henry Wood, New York Volunteer Engineers, August 1865, 1st Lieutenant, November 1865. John M. Sequels, 1st New York Mounted Rifles, June 15, 1865, mustered out. Appendix B. The First Black Soldiers. It is well known that the first systematic attempt to organize colored troops during the War of the Rebellion was the so-called Hunter Regiment. The officer originally detailed to recruit for this purpose was Sergeant C. T. Trowbridge of the New York Volunteer Engineers, Colonel Serrell. His detail was dated May 7th, 1862, S.O. 84, Department South. Enlistments came in very slowly, and no wonder. The white officers and soldiers were generally opposed to the experiment, and filled the ears of the negroes with the same tales which had been told them by their masters, that the Yankees really meant to sell them to Cuba, and the like. The mildest threats were that they would be made to work without pay, which turned out to be the case, and that they would be put in the front rank in every battle. Nobody could assure them that they and their families would be freed by the government if they fought for it, since no such policy had been adopted. Nevertheless, they gradually enlisted, the most efficient recruiting officer being Sergeant William Bronson of Company A in my regiment, who always prided himself on this service, and used to sign himself by the very original title, No. 1, African Foundations, in commemoration of his deeds. By patience and tact these obstacles would in time have been overcome, but before long, unfortunately, some of General Hunter's staff became impatient, and induced him to take the position that the blacks must enlist. Accordingly, squads of soldiers were sent to seize all able-bodied men of certain plantations, and bring them to the camp. The immediate consequence was a renewal of the old suspicion, ending in a widespread belief that they were to be sent to Cuba, as their masters had predicted. The ultimate result was a habit of distrust, discontent, and desertion that it was almost impossible to surmount. All the men who knew anything about General Hunter believed in him, but they all knew that there were bad influences around him, and that the government had repudiated his promises. They had been kept 4 months in service, and then had been dismissed without pay. That having been the case, why should not the government equally repudiate General Saxton's promises, or mine? As a matter of fact, the government did repudiate these pledges for years, though we had its own written authority to give them. But that matter needs an appendix by itself. The Hunter Regiment remained in camp on Hilton Head Island until the beginning of August 1862, kept constantly under drill, but much demoralized by the desertion. It was then disbanded, except one company. That company, under command of Sergeant Trowbridge, then acting as captain, but not commissioned, was kept in service, and was sent, August 5, 1862, to garrison St. Simon's Island, on the coast of Georgia. On this island, made famous by Mrs. Kemble's description, there were then 500 colored people, and not a single white man. The black soldiers were sent down on the Bendy Ford, Captain Hallett. On arriving, Trowbridge was at once informed by Commodore Goldsborough, naval commander at that station, that there was a party of rebel guerrillas on the island, and was asked whether he would trust his soldiers in pursuit of them. Trowbridge gladly assented, and the Commodore added, "If you should capture them, it will be a great thing for you." They accordingly went on shore, and found that the colored men of the island had already undertaken the enterprise. 25 of them had armed themselves under the command of one of their own number, whose name was John Brown. The second in command was Edward Gould, who was afterwards a corporal in my own regiment. The rebel party retreated before these men, and drew them into a swamp. There was but one path, and the negroes entered single file. The rebels lay behind a great log and fired upon them. John Brown, the leader, fell dead within 6 feet of the log, probably the first black man who fell under arms in the war. Several others were wounded, and the band of raw recruits retreated, as did also the rebels, in the opposite direction. This was the first armed encounter, so far as I know, between the rebels and their former slaves, and it is worth noticing that the attempt was a spontaneous thing and not accompanied by any white man. The men were not soldiers, nor in uniform, though some of them afterwards enlisted in Trowbridge's company. The father of this John Brown was afterwards a soldier in my regiment, and after his discharge for old age was for a time my servant. Uncle York, as we called him, was as good specimen of a saint as ever I met, and was quite the equal of Mrs. Stow's Uncle Tom. He was a fine-looking old man with dignified and courtly manners, and his grey head was a perfect benediction as he sat with us on the platform at our Sunday meetings. He fully believed to his dying day that the John Brown song related to his son and to him only. Trowbridge, after landing on the island, hunted the rebels all day with his colored soldiers and a posse of sailors. In one place he found a creek and a canoe, with a tar kettle and a fire burning, and it was afterwards discovered that, at the very moment, the guerrillas were hid in a dense palmetto thicket near by, and so eluded pursuit. The rebel leader was one Miles Hazard,
who had a plantation on the island, and the party escaped at last.